Welcome back to the Paranormal Girl podcast. I am your host, Kristen. Happy Halloween, my fellow creatures of the night. We are back for the second half of my conversation with Gil Bentley, host of the Black Cat Report. We left off following a violent electrical typhoonic storm, objects seen in the sky, and the discovery of some very large footprints left by a mysterious creature. Please enjoy the rest of my conversation with Gil.
These footprints are everywhere. And when I'm saying everywhere, I mean on the sides of walls, like on people's roofs, just like on the street. And like they're in cement and asphalt, right? But they're not depressed. It's not like pressed into the cement. It's like seared, like burned, like in a weird way into the cement all over the city. And in total, the radius was a 1 kilometer radius of the city, which is huge.
Wow.
All over this downtown area, there were footprints. Neighbors and stuff are coming out of the house, all these people, the residents, and they're just looking around there like, what the like, what are these weird markings all over? And immediately they start noticing that there's white triangles, like spray painted or painted around a lot of these footprints. And the way the triangle, it's a little bit off shape. It's not a perfect triangle, but all the triangles are painted so that they're pointing in the direction that whatever that three-toed thing was walking. It's pointing like an arrow around each footprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, people are out and they're talking. They're, well, last night was crazy. What are all these footprints doing here? And they start following these literal arrows. And they get to the downtown area in I believe it was a soccer field or baseball field right next to the landing strip at the Pemex oil refinery facility, right, where all these events happened. And there's teams of people in hazmat suits. There's literally, the way it was described as gringos flooded in from America. It was Americans flooded in there, and the local police were doing security for all these Americans that were there. Mm-hmm. Who were going through and taking samples of a large burnt out ground area right at the end of the landing strip, and had marked and painted footprints around the city for the past few hours, tracking where these footprints had gone. Okay. Now, what's fascinating and what's trippy about this is, again, this is a city, right? This is a large city, and people at different angles of witnessing different events over the course of the night. Nobody disagrees that there were footprints everywhere, seared into different materials all over the city, and large teams of people in hazmat suits from America there. Everybody agreed, and it wasn't just enough that everybody saw it in one day. These footprints stayed there for months. So while the hazmat teams were there, they went from trying to treat these footprints to get rid of them with chemicals to literally using sulfuric acid, to eventually straight up getting saws and sawing them out of the cement because they couldn't remove these freaking marks from the cement around the city. But try as they might, locals, like residents, were still finding these footprints even after all the gringos went back up to the United States. They were still finding them in random places, like next to sewers and like, down by creeks and like all over. And people were afraid. They were literally, there was a cultural context around it where people thought they might be radioactive. I mean, they woke up, found footprints, and then see the people that are looking at them in hazmat suits. Who wouldn't respond with, I need to stay away from that? So people would talk about, like, they would get to a certain spot on a block and everybody would cross the street and follow the sidewalk there and then go, like, people were trying to avoid these footprints that were left there. Yeah. And all of this adds up to something which I thought was fascinating as like a research move, but Carlos Guzman had, like, when he started looking into this, he didn't go to June 1st, 1973 in the local newspapers when he was digging through archives. He went a few weeks before and went around the region and started trying to find if there was anything leading up to it. There had been a string of large dog-like cryptid encounters of people being attacked by them at local ranches. One person may have even died. Like, this had all been leading up, but obviously giant UFOs, iron thing, footprints, gringos coming down in hazmat suits, that made the newspapers, right? Like, that spread all over. And at that point, every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, like, had a story. It went from Men in Black to large reptilian like ostrich looking things to, like there was so much stuff like banter like kind of like put around this case.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual case itself, thanks to his great research, was honestly even weirder than all of the rumors around it itself. So I have no clue what that cryptid could be. um but but damn it, does it not make me think that that giant steel like humanoid wasn't just looking for his lost dog? Like that's what it seemed like.
Oh no.
Like,
And did he
yeah,
end up leaving it behind? Is it still down there?
I don't know.
Lurking around.
I
Wow.
don't know, but that case just like blows my mind, and the amount of witnesses and evidence and stuff around it was just like, well, something happened. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows what it was, but
That's one of those cases that are just way compelling because yeah, just when you have all of those eyes on the situation and they can all report back the same details and
yeah,
strange details that you wouldn't think like somebody just fabricating something like that would say. Like I don't know, just a really strange detail. It's almost like you saw it. It's almost like
yeah.
you witnessed it. So is that that's the general kind of consensus? I know that they threw around different things as to what it could have been, but is that like kind of local lore that these
Yeah.
large dog
Well,
cryptids or
people claim different sightings, not enough that I could like go through the gamut of like what some people claim that they saw.
Mhm.
Um, Again, ostrich reptilian things running around, and like other folks seeing like dog looking
Right.
things. Who knows what the heck it was? Just remember these footprints, they traveled in a group. Judging by like the actual footprints themselves, there was at least three of these creatures. Probably should have included that. Three of these creatures like running around as like a pack together. One of them had
Mhm.
four toes, the other two had like three. And there was like, different sizes. I don't know, trackers do crazy stuff, they can hunt squonks, so I'm not sure. um
Obviously, yeah.
yeah, but there's no like clear consensus. Again, this is a crazy night. By the time this was happening, it was
Mhm.
pitch black. There was no power in the city,
Mhm.
right? It's the 80s, and like everybody was probably sleeping at that point. Like, there was nothing to do, nowhere to go. The weather was crazy. Everybody was in for the night. And last fact on that: on the trail through the residential neighborhoods where those footprints were found, all of the antennas, the TV antennas, were snapped all the way down the street. So there was just a large row of like going down city blocks of everybody's house had snapped TV antennas, and they didn't look like they just got bent off, like they broke perfectly, all of them, leading up
Whoa.
to this site where this landing happened, and the hazmat teams were. It was just weird. That case is weird,
Yeah. What a
but
strange story. And you would think, like, with so much involved in it and so many witnesses and just all this, like, weird stuff happening
yeah,
within it. It wasn't just like one event, one thing that happened. It's all this stuff that it would be more well known, like,
yeah,
more publicized or
yeah.
something. So
That's what we like to do
good
on
on
the
Mr.
show.
Gooseman. Good on you. Thank you for bringing it to our
Yeah,
attention.
yeah,
Wow. Well, thank you.
yeah.
That's
I hope that fits as a cryptid somewhere.
I think it does. And yeah, I gotta start reading more into like Charles Fort stuff and
Yeah,
John Keel stuff, like just about some of the weirder side of UFO, I don't know, cases. And yeah, there's just like a high strangeness aspect to these cases that just it's very intriguing.
yeah,
And especially like with cryptids involved in
yeah.
these UFO cases and are seen in the area. And a lot of times that is Bigfoot. That's people have reported, like, yeah, I saw a UFO on this side of the mountain, and then there was a Bigfoot sighting over there, just
Yeah.
like 20 yards away. So yeah, very intriguing. Thank you. I
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed that mystery cryptid, and I guess it shall remain a mystery
Yeah.
for now. Awesome, man. Well, this hour flew by so quickly. So let's go ahead and head into our final questions, final
Okay.
thoughts section, and then we will close it out. And if you can, hang around with me and we'll do a little backstage chat on Patreon.
Of course.
Okay, awesome. All right, ma'am. So, for your final questions, I've just got a couple here for you. I did think of one extra one. I'm gonna throw in there real quick,
Okay.
just because I'm curious, and this is what we talked about today. Where do you actually fall on belief about cryptids?
Mm. Ooh, that's almost like asking, where do you fall in history? Do you believe it?
Oh no.
Like it's like, no. I believe I know the spirit in which you're asking. Some yes, some kind of like with a lot of the lumberjack, like critters and stuff like that, are very obvious reflections of culture, and I think that
Mm,
that's when they veer off more into the area of actual folklore, right?
okay. Hmm.
They are a perfect representation of population, society, the culture, the occupations at the time, which I, as a history nerd, like I love that too, because a lot of times it's studying those cryptids can actually show you an honesty about people's critiques and their views on society deeper than just reading what they try to say about themselves. Like
Mm-hmm.
again with like the hide behind, like you need to be, poop face drunk in order to not get like your intestines slashed out. Well, that probably fell back to alcoholism and like people drinking too much out in the woods. And then like, like your guest had mentioned on that episode, that like then it was almost like the wives rebelled and they were like, well, there's this other cryptid who has an extra claw and it'll kill you if you drink too much. So,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yep.
so there
Yep.
was that. Or even then it was like the splinter cat, which a ridiculous cryptid of a cat that would just ram its head into trees and yada yada yada. But that was almost an explanation of like falling lumber and like the hazards around the occupation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Along with the aggro pelter, which would throw branches at people and kill them, in the woods. It was kind of like, hey, don't just look forward, look up when you're going through these, old forests and stuff like that. So, and you go around the world and you like look at these different cryptids, um, or creatures or goblins or ghouls, and they all, they are a clear reflection of society. And but it does push the debate of, are they a clear reflection of the society, or is that just how the society has terms and ways of explaining what they witness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So where's the balance at, right? We're all kind of limited by our linguistics, by our lexicon and our culture and our time. So some cryptids, I guess, to circle back to your answer, um, some cryptids, yeah, 100%. I could see
Yeah.
them existing. Bigfoot, fully on board with that. Um, Now, I don't know if at any moment Bigfoot might go extinct, but to say that Bigfoot has existed even up until recently, 90s, 2000s, 100%. I can 100% believe that. And that, just falls back on the fact that look at the totem poles of the folks that were living here first, where it's like that's the only quote unquote by European standards mythical creature on that totem pole.
Right.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Like,
Kind of strange, huh?
yeah. And it's, Europeans have had a long history of realizing that, like, indigenous and like native and First Nations folks were kind of right about a lot of stuff. And it's just taken us hundreds of years to circle back and be like, hey, maybe we should like not just pour bleach directly into the water, or like, it's crazy. Or maybe things are connected. So yeah, I always try to fall back when I'm looking into like folklore cryptids around the world. I try to fall back on like what are the indigenous, what are the First Nations folks around the world like? What were their beliefs? Right. Obviously, still taking it with a grain of salt around like cultural context. Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people dismiss it as like, well, that's related to their gods or this. Well, that's just the words that people use. Like you don't dismiss it.
Right.
And I think there's something there, and I think sometimes these are very rare sightings of freak, just kind of mutated genetic anomalies, like thunderbirds and stuff. It might have been a giant bird that just mutated that way, and
Yeah.
it might have lived
Yeah.
for 15 years, and a lot of people saw it. And it started a legend, and maybe every 30 or 40 years, this little gene pops up. One out of every 300,000 of these birds, and pops up again, keeps the legend going. But I don't know. I mean, pandas exist and they were cryptids up until 100 years ago or so. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Do I believe in the squonk? That's the real question. And 100%. Yes, I do. I've been to gothic nightclubs and I have seen them. Okay.
Oh no. Oh Lord. Gil, I love the way your brain works. I just really
Thank you.
enjoy that. Yes, and squonks. Hashtag squonks live. Okay.
I think I'm with you there. So my other question, I'm going to save it for our
Okay.
Patreon. We're going to have a
Okay.
little discussion about puckwudgies.
Yes.
So for my final question for you today,
Yes, ma'am.
uh, Gil, would you tell us your spooky story?
Yes. Okay. Trying to keep it to the shortest version I can as possible. But I'm just gonna tell you. Hold on one second. I need a sip.
I'm very excited about this. You're my last October guest, so
Oh,
yeah, very
I'm
excited.
honored. All right. So, little backstory about me. In my early 20s, hitchhiking, traveling, and I was hopping trains. Right. Before I, settled down, got lazy and boring. Um, And on one of my stops, I was living in Tampa, Florida at the time, and I was trying to go west to specifically to an area in Texas. This was during the Keystone XL pipeline like blockades that were happening. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I was heavily involved in environmental movement and organizing and stuff at the time. And like anybody involved in grassroots movements, poor as hell. So I was hopping trains, and I went from Tampa up to Jacksonville via Amtrak. Um, and from Jacksonville, this wasn't my first ride, but it was like my third or fourth. And the person who taught me how to hop trains had given me a very detailed breakdown. I mean, this guy had a photographic memory, my mentor for hopping trains. I'd called him. I was like, hey, this is where I need to go. And he's like, all right, so you're going to go here. You're going to go here. Then you're going to see a dollar store and you're going to turn left. And there's going to be a burned house. Like, it just like, he hadn't been there in years. And he was like, this. And I was like, sweet, thank you. I'm like, so that was the loose plan I was following. I had to get out to actions that were taking place, which I ultimately got arrested for, out in Texas, in Nacogdoches, Texas. This is all public record, and case has been resolved or whatever. We can talk about it now. So 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 anyways, I get there. I get there via Amtrak. The only time I ever rode a train, one of two times I've ridden a train legitimately as a passenger. I get there. He was like, all right, so when you get there, I'm going to go outside. There's going to be a shuttle. That shuttle for $5 will take you into, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name. Oh my God, I'm blanking. It's a town in North Florida, right?
Okay.
I also don't want to blow up the spot too much, honestly, because there's still people that are hopping trains through this little spot of town in Northern Florida. So he's like, you're going to go pay him $5, tell the bus driver to drop you off at the McDonald's. He'll know the one you're talking about. And I was like, what? And so I get there. The shuttles are ended. The train had been delayed that day. And kind of my first encounter, right? And they get more intense as it goes on. But my first encounter was I come outside. There's all these taxi drivers waiting at the train station, to give people rides and stuff. And I'm just confused. I'm like, shit, I don't know where to go. I only have like $15 to my name. And this guy looks over at me and he looks confused and he's just like, you trying to get a ride? And I was like, yeah, I need to go to town. I guess I'm supposed to go near a McDonald's. Honestly, I'm hopping trains and this is just the way that my friend told me to go. And he was just like, $15, man, it costs $75 for a taxi ride into town. And I was like, I literally don't have that. And he's like, damn. And I go inside, I'm getting water, and he comes in, he's like, hey, I just felt the need, like, I'm gonna give you a ride. Like, and I'm like, oh, well, thank you. That's not uncommon when you're traveling and hitchhiking. Like, people's kindness and goodness comes out, and it honestly restores your faith in humanity if you don't get picked up by a serial killer. So so this guy gives me a long ride, and he goes on this long philosophical breakdown and yada 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 yada. It was awesome. Drops me off. I get to the McDonald's, and I see this. For whatever reason, if you're out in public and you see folks that just kind of catch your eye for whatever reason, like, you're not trying to be weird and stare at them. You don't even think they're like pretty or super ugly or anything like that. It's just for whatever reason you're just magnetically like, what? Like, you see them and it connects. I see these two folks. Obviously, they're all like, dressed in black, and they're at McDonald's. And I'm just kind of like, look, and I see them, and whatever, bookmark in the back of my brain. And I start walking the long walk down the road to the Family Dollar where I was supposed to yada yada follow the spot into the woods where I could wait for a train to catch to go west. Make the long walk there, get to the Family Dollar. Everything's exactly where my mentor told me, things would be. And I'm walking down the road. Now, one of the first things you learn when you start hopping trains is how unbelievably boring it is. It's just insanely boring. Like it really has prepared me for a life working with spreadsheets. Like they are so exciting compared to hopping trains. Um, so, so next to the tracks, it's like, so picture this, a railroad going east and west. One side of the tracks, it's a swamp. It's Florida. The other side, there's a gravel service road, right? And to the right side of the service road is kind of like a little hill that's going up. It's Florida. It's like the one hill in Florida. Anyways, so I'm walking down this long service road, and sure enough, I, hear the train whistle. That's insane. Trains never come like within 10 minutes of getting to a spot. Like a lot of times it's days or sometimes weeks to like actually catch the train you need to leave to go somewhere. It's not an efficient way to travel. So, so I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so lucky, And I'm running down this road I'm trying to get to a good spot away from the street lights. Like, again, there's like forest and a hill on the one side. I'm trying to get far enough down that people aren't going to see me when I'm going to hop onto the train. And sure enough, at the opposite end, the end that I was walking towards, this is like a mile-long service road, headlights pop up on the service road. And I'm like, and I run up into the woods. And I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. Everything's cool. Train comes by, it stops. I'm like, oh my God, it's going the way I'm supposed to go. I go out, and I'm like looking for one of the cars I can ride on, and then boom, headlights come on. And I'm like, shit. And they're shining right at me. They're looking straight at me. It's maybe 75 to 100 feet away. It's a cop. And I'm like, crap. And so I run, and I run into the woods, and I only get so far into the woods before, like, and spotlights on, Jason Bourne style, like cops like looking for. It was obvious I was about to hop this train, right? And I'm illegally trespassing on a service road. And so spotlights on in the woods, it's night, and like I just throw my bag down on the ground. Again, I'm on a hill that's facing the road, so like I can't hide anywhere. I'm literally angled to face them. Right, I throw my bag down, giant traveling bag, and I lay down on the ground, and for whatever reason I'm like, this will work. And of course the spot that I lay down in is completely dead. There's no vegetation, there's nothing. It's just like a giant dead spot underneath a large tree. The worst spot to try to hide from a searchlight, a spotlight. Spotlight comes by and shines straight on me. The car stops. Like I remember to this day the sound of the brakes, like just the brake. The cop stops, and I'm just like, oh shit. I'm so freaked out, and I'm like, I'm going to jail tonight. Crap, And I'm waiting, and my heart's beating fast, and I'm like, oh crap. But the cop doesn't say anything. It's just shining a light at me, and then time keeps going, and time keeps going. I'm still under a spotlight this whole time. This was October, November. I'm freezing cold, right? And so I have my blanket there at one point. And this is where I can relate to some of the ridiculous sounding things that people say that they did during their high strangeness or paranormal encounters, where when you look back and you're like, why on earth would anybody do that? It's like there's weird things that click in your brain at that time. Like there's very strange things that'll click. I was getting cold, and frankly, I think once my adrenaline was kind of wearing off, I was getting impatient with like, dude, are you going to arrest me or say anything? But if I am somehow magically perfectly out of your sight, even though I'm literally in a spotlight, like I don't want to move, I'm not trying to give myself up. And so I unclipped the blanket. I had this old cowboy blanket on the outside of my traveling pack, and I put it over top of me. And I'm just like waiting to get arrested. Again, spotlight on me the whole damn time. And it gets to the point where, I'm like underneath the blanket, I'm texting my partner at the time, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to jail tonight. And she's like, what the, and like, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, cops got a spotlight on me right now. I don't know when they're going to arrest me. And then I just felt like I woke up. Like that was one of the last things that I remember, but like it almost felt like I blacked out. I don't know if I had a crash because I was eating like crap and like all that adrenaline, or like what happened, but I just like woke up. And the forest was black. I was laying there with the blanket on top of me and everything. And I was like, what? And the train was gone. Everybody's gone. I, cautiously walked out of the woods onto the service road, and I look, and I'm scared the cop's going to pop out again. No cops, just middle of the night. And look at my phone. Obviously, I had like 60 missed calls and text messages from my partner. I had been out for like 2 hours. I have no idea what happened to me. Now, that could all be chalked up to a lot of things. Like I said at the start of this episode, like I came in very against a lot of these things, very skeptical and stuff like that. Now, a few days later, again, I was here for like a week, and weird crap kept happening. I'm not going into all the minutia, but there was a lot of weird events that kind of just set a tone for this whole experience. I became a frequent at that McDonald's, charging my phone every day there, things like that, like early in the morning, going back and waiting for the train because they don't really run on our schedule. They just kind of show up, and if you're not there, you miss it and you have to wait another week, right? Again, it's super exciting. It's a big adventure. Well, the one evening, walking back to the tracks, I'm walking down this road and I'm heading towards the tracks, and the train starts coming, and I can hear from the sound that it's going from east to west. Great, that's perfect. I need to go from east to west. Can't go too far east from Florida. And so I start running, 60 pounds of gear on my back. I'm running, and I'm on the side where there's the swamp by the time I finally get to the train. There's like a small little bit of road with some houses, and then the swamp starts on that side of the tracks. And so I'm running along through this little neighborhood that butts up against railroad tracks, looking for a car that I can hop on. I'm like, oh my God. And then I find it. I had been here for days. I was hungry. I was tired, yada, yada, yada. I just wanted to get the heck out of this little town. And I'd been living on Hormel chili and McDonald's, like not a good vibe. And so I go to climb up. And of course, right at that moment, a cop car on the other side of the train pulls onto the road with a spotlight coming down. And I'm like, yeah. And so I jump off. And I jump into the swamp, and I'm up into about my shoulders in swamp water up against the edge of these railroad tracks. Luckily, again, a bunch of little things happen at that abandoned, burned out house my friend had told me about. I had found old camouflage netting, which I was like, that's cool. And I attached it to my backpack in like a bundle. So I pulled that crap out and I put it over top of my head. And I was just like, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in like whatever movie he's ever been in where he's hiding in a swamp covered in mud. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, train goes, spotlight shining straight on me as it just like kind of like it didn't shine straight at me, it kind of just like glanced by me. I was blending in with the vegetation. It was camouflage, and I was like, holy shit, that's lucky I had camo. Like, what the heck? But I'm soaking wet. It's the fall, it's cold. Like, I'm getting out of this swamp, right? And again, I had been living in Florida for years before this. I can't take anything below 65 at this point in my life, and I climb out just covered in mud and freezing cold. This was late evening at this point. It was starting to get dark. And I look over at the end of this little, I guess, situation at the Family Dollar, and I see that couple, which I had also seen a bunch of other times. We never said a word to each other, and I feel like we never made eye contact. I stared at them. I don't know if they looked at me. I get out, and at this point, I'd remembered something my mentor had told me. He was just like, hey, if you keep seeing the same folks around town, ask them about the trains. They live there. They get annoyed by them every day. They know the schedule. I was like, cool. And so I walk out of the swamp covered in mud up to these folks that are standing outside of that Family Dollar. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to hop a train. And like, before I get another word out, the woman responds, your dad was really old. And I was like, what? Huh? And she's like, he was a coal miner. He had black lung his whole life, didn't he? And I was like, what the So my name, Gil, because I'm a junior, because my dad, born in 1933 in Pikesville, Kentucky, was a coal miner growing up. And back in 1933, it was like the 30th most popular name, or 33rd or something like that. Nobody knows that. Like, nobody knows that. Even close friends of mine might not even know how old my dad is, And, again, I'm like 23 at the time, and she's calling this out that I'm like, or I was like 22 at the time. She's calling out that my dad was like in his 70s. I'm like, that's a huge guess. Yeah. For a stranger who's walking out of a swamp towards you. If you're just cold reading somebody, right? Again, coming in with the skeptical mind. If you're just cold reading somebody, that's not your first guess. And then breaking down the fact that he was a coal miner, which is true, and that he had black lung his whole life. Yeah, he started at like 8 years old in coal mine in the 30s and 40s. He had black lung his whole life. And I was like, yeah. And I was just confused as hell. She's like, and your mom's a witch. And I was like, what the? And at this point, I'm thinking they're a government agent. And I was like, I hadn't said anything else to her. And she goes, the mother, she really appreciates what you're trying to do for her. And I was like, what the because I'm planning to go to try to stop a tar sands pipeline from being built.
Oh.
She was referring to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, again, freezing cold. I've been living in the woods. I look crazy. And I'm just like, what? Like, and she's like, would you like to come back with me to my house? I live just down the road here. You can change out of your wet clothes. I can throw those in the dryer for you. And I was like, at that point, I just gave up. I was like, yeah, sure. And so we start walking down this service road, right? Same one. Well, eventually it connects into a neighborhood. As we're walking down this freaking service road, she stops and she points straight to the tree that I had hit on that first night with the spotlight. And she said, do you see that tree? And I was like, yeah. She's like, if the cops are ever chasing you, hide underneath it. He'll protect you from them seeing you. There was a black man hung there by the police department in like the 50s. He hates police. I swear, again, this crap was going on for a week. Again, I was very stubborn and very brick-headed about paranormal and this and that. It was just too much for me to be like, well, that's a coincidence. No, that's not a coincidence. So we keep walking, and I never told her any of this. We keep walking. I'm just in shock and like also freezing to death. Get to her house. She's super nice. We just have regular casual convo. My clothes are drying. She makes me some really nice like a protection like pendant and like this beads and stuff like that and gives it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, the train you're going to want to catch is going to be around here around 10:30. And I'm like, thank you so much. He's like, yeah, no, like, again, like, take care, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, yeah. And it was all like normal talk. It was like, oh, you ever seen, Xena Warrior Princess? It was just like random small talk while we were at, there was no more giant breakthroughs or anything. But I leave from her house and I start walking down the street. This neighborhood's pitch black. There's no street lights. And I'm walking towards that service road again. And a large black dog just starts running straight towards me. Like it's like a German Shepherd, like a big old German Shepherd, pitch black, just starts running straight towards me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a hitchhiker, traveler, whatever, you always carry a knife. I still do to this day, just habit, I guess. I grab my knife in my pocket, and this dog's running towards me, and I'm like, please don't. Like, I don't want to hurt this dog. I also don't want to get in a fight with the dog. But if this thing's rabid and like coming straight at me, I'm going to defend myself. And I'm like, please don't do this. And like the dog's running towards me, gets right up to me and stops. Sits down and just does the and just looking at me, big old black dog, and I'm like, what the fuck? And so like I stick my hand out and the dog starts rubbing its head up against me. It's being super friendly, and I was just like, well, I got a train to catch. I'm like, well, if you want to come with me, you can. I start walking. The dog stays, just like step with me, follows me half a mile down the service road up to the woods. I hang out with that dog for the next like 5 hours. There's another experience later where cops come at one point. I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Like, there's not even a train here this time. And I run up in the woods, dog's hanging out with me the whole night. I'm hiding behind a tree. This time I actually had time to find a good hiding place. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to push my luck with trusting the giant tree with a dead patch of ground underneath it. I was like, yeah, once is enough. Thank you, bud. So I'm hiding in a good spot, and this dog's hanging out with me. Night's going on, and the police eventually left. At that point, I'm just sitting up in the woods, and I'm kind of exhausted. And I told you this is a long story, but there's a lot to convince me there's paranormal shit in the world. Okay?
I'm digging it, man. I'm here for it.
So I have no clue what the hell this next experience was, but it was one of the cherries on top of a lot of cherries on top of this whole paranormal high strangeness cake for me. I start to see from the left side, and it's just woods at this part, or mostly just woods until you get to the Family Dollar or whatever. I start to see on my left side like light, like coming into the woods, but there's no distinct source of it. It's just kind of like a glowing, almost like early morning light. At this point, it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, or it's late, right? It's somewhere between, I think I do get on a train around 4 a.m. Lights like coming in. And I'm sitting here, this giant ass, big black German Shepherd, being my best friend right now. I've been alone in the woods for a week, so I'm just loving this. I'm a cat person, obviously, but I'm still, this dog's super nice. This dog is the cat of dogs, it's a high compliment for me. I'm just petting this dog, and we're hanging out, and I'm talking to it, and this light picks up, and I'm just like, is that like somebody coming in the woods, or like what the hell's going on? And it just kind of has this like whoa, 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 like the lights slowly illuminating more and more, almost like a fog that's like creeping in, where it has like a distinctive stopping and starting. Like there's a hard line there, but it's soft, I guess.
Mhm.
Things are starting to light up, and it just slowly passes all the way over me and keeps going until the forest. And I had done psychedelics in my youth. I can tell you I hadn't done any psychedelics that day, but it reminded me a lot of like the afterglow after like LSD or something like that, where like things just kind of have like a plush like vibe and like glow to them, right? Or if you have a very small dose of LSD, you can do that, or shrooms, you can do that. It reminded me of that. I was too poor to afford drugs at the time, and that witch didn't hook me up with anything. So, oh yeah, but she was a witch, the lady there. So everything's starting to glow, and I'm just petting this dog, and I'm in the woods, and it's like a Miyazaki film or something like that. It's just like everything's starting to shine around me, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it just all of a sudden, and I've heard a few references to this over the years, I start to realize that there's like a pulse. It's like, whoom, whoom. And as kooky as it sounds, I felt like I was actually watching like the pulse of the forest I was sitting in. Like I could see it. Like I could literally see the forest like as an ecosystem, like breathing. Like, whoom, whoom. And then it just slowly fades out. That was weird. Immediately after that, a train came through. Well, half an hour, but that's a long time in train hopping time. So, or that's a short time in train hopping time. So, train comes through. It's going in the direction I want. I look at the dog and I'm like, hell yeah. And I'm like, all right, dude, I don't even know you, but you've been awesome. I gotta go. And I just like run, get out to the road. Obviously, I look both ways before I cross the service road this time. There's no cop. And I'm like, yes, I finally beat the cop here. I'm running along this train as it's slowly coming to a stop. Finally find a car that I can hop on. I'm like, yes, yeah. And so I get up, I climb in. The second I get in, cop comes down the service road and is shining a spotlight and starts going down every single car, looking with the spotlight in it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I get out, I climb along the other side, swamp facing side from the service road, right? And I climb up the ladder on top of the train. Trains are very tall, right? So this is like, I get up to the top of the ladder. It's about 15, 16 feet up off the ground. There's kind of a gravel embankment at the bottom and then swamp, right? And I climb up, and of course, there's a porthole right up at the top. So when the cop's going to be coming, I had a lot of time to think because I'm watching them search the cars as they're coming towards me, right? And there's a porthole, and I'm like, crap. And obviously, at that time of night, anything you do just makes a lot of noise, right? Yeah. It's like steel train car and large pieces of gravel below you and water, and everything else is silent. Like you're scared to breathe, right? And adrenaline's pumping and stuff. So I get up and I climb up, and I have to like, I don't know how to imagine like closing chopsticks together, right? So that's my hands on one bar of this ladder and my feet on the bar directly below it, and I'm putting myself at like a triangle kind of angle above the porthole because I can't get on the roof because they'll see me, or the top, and I can't go down because they'll see me. So I have this narrow little spot like 15, 16 feet up above the ground on this ladder, and I'm carrying like 65, 70 pounds, however much, of like crap in my backpack, right? And I'm at this angle just waiting, trying to hold on. Cops come by, shine the light, search into the thing. They don't see me. Immediately, I think when the relief of that hit, when they went to go search the back of that train car, I just lost my grip. I gave up, and I fell about like 15, 16 feet, landed on my back like a turtle with my giant backpack, but it was on like loud gravel and like next to the swamp. It was loud when I crashed onto the ground. I was like, crap. Like I had that thought of like, am I paralyzed? No? Okay. And I'm like, I get up and I'm like, I go to start trying to awkwardly like get up and like try to climb the ladder. But if you've ever had a hiking backpack on and you fell on your back, it's really hard to get up, especially when you're on a hill. So I'm struggling on this loud rock. I finally get up, take like 2 steps on the ladder. Spotlight comes over. And that dog pops out. What? And doesn't run towards me. It runs back towards the service road and towards the woods and stops and looks at the cops. They thought The sound was the dog.
Whoa.
The cops eventually leave. I climb back into the spot I was going to go, like, hide in stuff to ride the train. And I look over the edge, and the dog's just sitting there looking at me with the same look it had on its face when it first met me, just like staring up at me. And then I left, and I, went to Texas and everything else. But yeah, that to me, that was a very clear that witch that knew everything about me the second I met her, sent that dog to protect me.
Wow.
Straight up, like it was. And when I told the story to my mom before I even got to the end, she was like, "Oh, you met a fellow sister?" Like, yeah. Oh yeah, no, we all know each other. And she was just so nonchalant because she, years of me being a skeptic. She's like, well, now you see. But she's like, yeah, when she gave you that, she was basically declaring like she was sending a familiar or an entity that she, had some sort of spiritual relationship with. She was marking you and telling them to protect you. And I was just like, damn.
So that would be her familiar.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That whole experience was the anvil that finally broke through again, the child's resistance against parents' faith and religion and stuff, because it was a week long of crazy crap happening that I didn't want to be involved in.
That's just like a lot of in your face stuff too. Yeah. Like it's when the universe pushes you to a point when you cannot not look at it anymore. Yeah. Like, and then once your eyes are open, like it's hard to close them again. That was an insane story, Gil. My goodness.
I don't know how to make that short because I was very brick-headed. I hope it's okay. I went on too long there.
No. The length was absolutely fine, and it was just like an adventure, and we were all pulled along, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. What a great final story for this month.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end here. So, would you tell my audience where they can find and follow you online, and if anything's coming up for a Black Cat Report, anything you want to share?
Yeah. So easiest way to find us is go to Google, type in Black Cat Report. You might have to throw in the word podcast at the end, or you'll find a lot of reports of black cats. Not a bad thing. And yeah, but you can find us on any podcatcher, Spotify, iTunes, Alexa, whatever. You can find us there. You can also go to bcr.bio/links, or find that link on our Instagram, Black Cat Report, Twitter, Black Cat Report. I think we have a Mastodon account, all of them. We're on everything. Again, I do digital marketing for a living. I try to get us everywhere. So yeah, you can find us on all your favorite streaming services and things like that. And yeah, in terms of upcoming shows, I don't know. We're just going to keep pushing strange subjects and the stuff that we love and the stuff that we like. We do have some concepts, kind of like loaded in the barrel, like coming down the line. But, as the holiday season kicks in, we'll see if we'll have time to pull them off. But we always try to not stick to a format and mess with like what podcasts can do and things like that. We really like to try to push stuff, even if we only do it one time. But we got some things coming up for the holiday season that might be gifts.
Listeners, I'm telling you gotta check them out. It's everything good I could say about the show is true. It's a great show, a great experience, and you just kind of get pulled along for the ride, and I learned something new and unexpected on every episode that I've listened to. So it's it's a blast. But all right, Gil, so to take us out, would you like to leave my audience with any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or a piece of advice?
100%. Go down the rabbit hole. Let your ADHD or your distractions like lead your imagination. Always look at the untitled documents on cia.gov/ like the vault or whatever it is, where they have all their government documents, all the disclosed documents. Always look at the ones that say untitled. There's so much juicy stuff there. And don't be afraid to research. It's fun discovering stories people have forgotten or have been completely lost. And there's a specific thrill to when you come across something that you just can't find when you Google it. And you realize you're the only one holding that information. Like I get a kick out of it. So please just research, just look stuff up, have fun. Like, go have fun, please. And that's it. Yeah.
All right. Gil, host of the Black Cat Report, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gil, for appearing on the show with me. I cannot tell you how awesome it was to get to speak with you. Listeners, if you enjoyed today's chat, you may enjoy catching Gil back on his home turf. Find the Black Cat Report anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow him and the show on the socials. You heard the man. They're everywhere. Heads up, everyone. The show will be going dark next week. I am taking some time to shake off Spooktober and gear back up for the Bigfoot train. We have got a lot to get into before the year is out, and I am so excited for it, dudes. I have got some great guests lined up that I think you guys are going to be especially excited for. So, to be continued shortly. Follow the show on the socials at Paranorm Girl Pod for updates and on YouTube for your entertainment. I have uploaded the replay of this past Sunday's Halloween celebration. Consider it a little bonus episode this month, so check it out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you guys have a fabulously spooky rest of your Halloween. I will catch you all in a couple of weeks. Stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.